The sound of the judge's gavel hits the wooden desk, and it feels like it slams straight into my chest. I'm sitting in a freezing courtroom at 67 years old, my hands shaking as I clutch a faded yellow envelope I've guarded for over a decade. My name is Eleanor Vance, and today, my own daughter is accusing me of kidnapping her children. Across the room sits Valerie, polished hair, tailored suit, a lawyer at her side who hasn't stopped flipping through documents since we walked in. She won't look at me, not really. When she does, there's anger in her eyes, and something else too, fear. If this story touched your heart, friends, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more touching stories. Thank you for being here. Your Honor, Valerie says, standing tall, her voice tight but rehearsed. My mother illegally kept my children from me for 13 years. I never gave her permission. This is parental kidnapping. The word kidnapping slices through me like a blade. I turn slightly and see my grandchildren sitting behind me. Arthur, 20 years old, trying to act strong. Emily, 18, biting her lip. Andrea, just 16, hugging her arms around herself like she used to when she was little and scared. They look like they don't know whether they're watching a trial or a nightmare. Judge Mason peers at me over his glasses. Mrs. Vance, he says calmly, what do you have to say in response? I swallow hard. Your Honor, I begin, my voice trembling despite my efforts. I didn't steal anyone's children. I raised the children my daughter left behind. Valerie jumps to her feet. That's a lie, she shouts. I was sick. I had postpartum depression. I needed help, temporary help. She took advantage of that and turned my kids against me. Her lawyer steps in quickly, explaining hospitalizations, emotional instability, vulnerability. Heads in the courtroom nod, whispers ripple through the seats. I can feel judgment pressing down on me. But what they don't know is what those 13 years actually looked like. 13 years of scraped knees and midnight fevers. 13 years of parent-teacher meetings where I was the only adult who showed up. 13 years of birthday cakes, therapy appointments, empty Christmas mornings where the kids asked why their mom never called. The judge sighs softly. Mrs. Vance, even if you cared for them, the biological mother has rights. I tighten my grip on the envelope. With all respect, Your Honor, I interrupt, surprising even myself with how steady my voice sounds. There are things this court hasn't heard yet. I slowly lift the envelope into the air. The room stills. Valerie's face drains of color. What's in that envelope? The judge asks. Proof. Proof of why my daughter disappeared. Proof of why she came back now. And proof that this case isn't about love. Valerie whispers, barely audible, Mom, please don't. I look directly at her for the first time. I've been silent for 13 years, I say quietly. Today, I won't be. The judge leans forward. Mrs. Vance, are you prepared to present this evidence? I glance at my grandchildren, 3 children I raised with everything I left in this world. Yes, Your Honor, I say, but first, you need to hear what really happened the day my daughter showed up at my door and walked away from her children. The judge nods. Then tell us, he says, from the beginning. I close my eyes. And suddenly, I'm back in my kitchen 13 years ago, on a rainy October afternoon that changed everything. I take the court back to the exact moment my daughter abandoned her children and reveal what she left behind that no one ever expected. 13 years ago, it was raining, the kind of rain that seeps into your bones. I remember because my knees were aching badly that morning. I had just come back from a doctor's appointment where I was told my arthritis was getting worse. I was standing in my small kitchen, heating water for tea, trying to calm myself, when I heard a sharp knock at the door. It was just before noon. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Valerie stood there, soaked, frantic, eyes darting everywhere except at me, and beside her were 3 small figures. Arthur was 7, holding his sister's hand like he was already used to being the responsible one. Emily was 5, her hair tangled and face streaked with dirt. Andrea was barely 3, crying weakly, her little body limp against her mother's leg. They looked exhausted and hungry. "Mom," Valerie said quickly, pushing past me into the house, "I need you to keep them for a while." "For how long?" I asked, already kneeling to pull Andrea into my arms. "Just a few weeks," she said, "until I get my life together." She dropped a thin plastic bag onto my kitchen table. Inside were a few wrinkled clothes, mismatched socks, and nothing clean. No toys, no school supplies, no medications, nothing a mother normally brings when she plans to come back. I asked her if she needed money. I asked if the children's father was involved. I asked if she was in danger. She kept repeating the same sentence over and over. "I'll be back soon." She kissed each child quickly, too quickly, like someone rushing to catch a train. Then she turned and walked back out into the rain. Arthur ran to the window. "Mom," he yelled, "when are you coming back?" But she was already getting into a taxi. That was the last time they saw her for 13 years. That first night, none of the children slept. Andrea cried for a stuffed bear she'd left behind. Emily barely spoke at all. Arthur tried to be brave, asking me questions he was far too young to carry. "Grandma," he whispered, "did we do something bad?" My heart broke in ways I didn't know were possible. Days passed, then weeks. I tried calling Valerie, but her number was disconnected. I went to her old apartment, only to learn she'd moved out without notice. The landlord handed me a small box of abandoned items, paperwork, photos, and things she didn't bother to take. The children kept asking about their mom. Arthur started wetting the bed again. Emily stopped talking almost completely. Andrea developed a cough that wouldn't go away. I realized something terrifying. She wasn't coming back. So I did what any grandmother would do. I enrolled them in school near my home. I took them to doctors. I learned how to stretch my small pension to feed 4 people. I sold jewelry I'd saved for years. I cleaned houses on weekends just to keep the lights on. And still, no calls, no letters, no birthday cards. Days passed, then weeks. Arthur asked if his mom would come to his 8th birthday. Emily introduced me at school as her mother. Andrea clung to me like letting go might make the world disappear. I told myself Valerie was sick, that she'd return when she got better, that this was temporary. But deep down, I knew the truth. She had walked away, and she hadn't looked back. What I didn't know then was that she had left something behind, something written in her own hand, something that would one day change everything in that courtroom. I explain how I became their legal guardian and why my daughter's disappearance wasn't as innocent as she now claims. At first, I truly believed Valerie would come back. I told myself she just needed time, that she was overwhelmed, that any day now I'd hear a knock at the door and see her standing there, ready to take her children home. But days turned into months, and months turned into years. By the time Arthur turned 8, I had stopped checking the door. The reality set in slowly and painfully. I wasn't just helping anymore. I was raising 3 children on my own. My pension barely covered my own expenses, let alone food, clothes, school supplies, and doctor visits for growing kids. I sold the last pieces of jewelry I owned, things I had saved for decades. When that wasn't enough, I took cleaning jobs on weekends, scrubbing floors while my hands ached and my knees burned. Neighbors helped when they could. My sister watched the kids when I worked late, but the responsibility, that was mine alone. The hardest part wasn't the money. It was the questions. "Grandma, when is Mom coming back?" I never had a good answer. Arthur became quiet and serious far too young. Emily had nightmares and stopped speaking for weeks at a time. Andrea cried whenever I left the room, terrified I wouldn't come back either. When Andrea got sick with pneumonia at 5 years old, everything changed.
At the hospital, they asked for insurance papers, parental consent, medical history, documents I didn't legally have the authority to sign. A nurse pulled me aside and said something that shook me to my core. You need legal guardianship for their safety. That night, after the kids fell asleep, I sat alone at my kitchen table and cried harder than I had in years. I didn't want to replace my daughter, but I had no choice. I hired a lawyer with money I didn't have, $800, more than I could afford, but necessary. The court required us to locate Valerie. Notices were published, letters were sent to her last known address. There was no response, not a call, not a letter, not even a complaint. 3 years later, the court granted me full legal guardianship. The paperwork was official. I was legally responsible for all medical, educational, and financial decisions regarding the children. Valerie was nowhere to be found. The children grew. Arthur excelled in school. Emily discovered a love for poetry. Andrea learned to play guitar and filled the house with music. I took them to therapy when they struggled. I attended every school event. I showed up every single time. And I never spoke badly about their mother. I told them she loved them, but wasn't able to be there. I saved every drawing they made for her, every card, every little message they hoped I'd someday give her. For 13 years, she never asked for them. No phone calls, no money, no birthdays, no holidays. Until 2 months ago. That's when she showed up at my door with a lawyer and a lawsuit. Back in the courtroom, the judge listens carefully as I explain all of this. Valerie shifts in her chair, her fingers twisting nervously. And during all these years, the judge asks, did your daughter attempt contact? No, Your Honor, I answer, not once. The judge leans forward. Then why now? He asks. I take a slow breath and glance at the yellow envelope in my hands. Because something changed, I say quietly. The room leans in. My daughter didn't come back because she missed her children. She came back because there was suddenly money involved. Valerie's head snapped up. Your Honor, that's not true, she shouts. That I already know what's coming next, because inside this envelope are letters. Letters she never thought I'd keep. I reveal the letters my daughter wrote after abandoning her children and the secret life she built while pretending we didn't exist.
The courtroom feels tighter now. Every eye follows my hands as I slowly open the yellow envelope I've carried for 13 years. My fingers hesitate for just a second before pulling out a small stack of folded papers yellowed with age. These are letters, I say quietly, written by my daughter in the months after she left her children with me. Valerie's lawyer stiffens. Valerie herself doesn't move. She just stares at the floor. The judge gestures for the clerk to take them. Mrs. Vance, he says, are these handwritten? Yes, Your Honor, I reply. I'd recognize her handwriting anywhere. The first letter was written just 3 weeks after she disappeared. I remember reading it at my kitchen table, my hands shaking with hope back then. In it, Valerie didn't ask how the children were doing. She didn't ask if they were safe. She didn't ask if they missed her. Instead, she wrote that she had met a man, that she was moving to another city with him, and that I needed to keep the kids a little longer because her new partner didn't want responsibilities right away. The courtroom goes silent. The judge looks up slowly. A new partner? Yes, Your Honor. Valerie's lawyer clears his throat, visibly uncomfortable. I continue. The second letter came 2 months later. In that one, my daughter told me she was pregnant. She said the man she was with would leave her if she brought her past life into their new family. Arthur stiffens behind me. Emily gasps softly. Andrea lowers her head. They didn't know. I never told them they had a younger brother. I never wanted to hurt them more than they were already hurting. The judge rubs his temple. Did she mention returning for the children? No, I answer. She asked me to make things official. I pull out another letter. In this one, she asked me to sign documents renouncing any future claims against her so she could start fresh without complications.
She offered me $500 for raising her children. $500 for 13 years of sacrifice. Valerie's lawyer reads silently now, his face growing paler by the second. "And did you accept?" the judge asks. "No, Your Honor." I explain how I wrote back, refusing the money, how I told her that if she truly wanted to disappear, then she needed to stay gone until she was ready to be a mother again. The final letter was the hardest. That was the last time she ever contacted me, I say. The judge asks me to read it aloud. My voice trembles, but I don't stop. "Take care of the kids," I read. "I have my own family now. If anyone asks, tell them their mother had to go far away for work." The room feels heavy, suffocating. Tears slide down Emily's face. Arthur clenches his jaw. Andrea grips the edge of the bench. Valerie breaks down, sobbing. But the judge isn't finished. "Mrs. Vance," he says, looking directly at her, "you had another child during this time." "Yes," I answer, before Valerie can speak. "A son she raised, a child she could care for because it fit her new life." Valerie shakes her head, whispering, "I was sick." The judge leans back. "And yet," he says slowly, "you were capable of raising another child while abandoning these three." I fold the letters carefully and place them back into the envelope. "But there's more," I say, "because these letters explain why she left, not why she came back." I lift a new document. "And that answer," I continue, "is tied to an inheritance she never expected." I expose the real reason my daughter returned after 13 years and how money changed everything. The courtroom grows restless as I remove the next document from the envelope. This one is thicker, heavier, the kind of paper that carries consequences. "My daughter didn't come back because she missed her children," I say calmly. "She came back because my brother died." The judge looks up sharply. "Explain." 3 months ago," I continue, "my younger brother passed away unexpectedly. He never had children of his own. In his will, he left an inheritance for each of my grandchildren." Valerie's head snaps up. "How much?" the judge asks. $50,000 for each child," I answer. $150,000 in total. A murmur ripples through the courtroom. I don't look at Valerie, but I can feel her panic. "The inheritance," I continue, "was placed in trust. The funds are protected until the children reach adulthood. As their legal guardian, I began the process to secure it for them." The judge leans forward, "And shortly after that, your daughter appeared." "Yes, Your Honor." I pull out another document. "This is a report from a licensed private investigator," I say. "I hired him after my daughter showed up at my door with threats and a custody lawsuit." Valerie's lawyer jumps to his feet. "Objection!" The judge raises a hand. "Overruled. Continue." I explained that 2.5 months before filing for custody, Valerie hired her attorney. Around the same time, she began requesting information about the inheritance. The timing wasn't coincidence. It was calculation. "And there's more," I say. The investigator uncovered Valerie's financial situation. Her husband had lost his job. They were drowning in debt, facing eviction. 3 months ago, they learned about the inheritance. 2 months ago, Valerie accused me of kidnapping. The judge exhales slowly. "You believe this lawsuit was financially motivated." "I don't believe it. I know it." Valerie suddenly stands. "I just wanted to protect my children's money." I turn toward her for the first time. "Then why threaten me with jail?" I ask quietly. The room freezes. The judge looks at me. "Threaten you?" "Yes, Your Honor." I remove another stack of papers from the envelope. These are text messages my daughter sent me after I told her the inheritance was already protected in trust. The judge asks me to read them aloud. I take a breath. "Message 1, I say. Any judge will side with me. You should think carefully." I pause. Message 2, "What you did could be considered kidnapping. You could go to jail." Gasps ripple through the room. And the last message, I continue, my voice steady, if you give me custody voluntarily, we can split the inheritance. The judge sets the papers down slowly. Mrs. Vance, he says to Valerie, did you send these messages? She says nothing. Her lawyer's shoulders sag. The judge looks back at me. Mrs. Vance, he asks gently, is there anything else in that envelope the court should know? I look down at the envelope. There is something I never thought I'd have to reveal, something my grandchildren don't even know exists. Yes, I say quietly, there's one more document. The courtroom holds its breath. This paper, I continue, was written by my daughter herself 3 days after she abandoned her children. Valerie's face turns white. The judge sits up straighter. What kind of document? He asks. I tighten my grip. A document, I say, that changes everything. I reveal the document my daughter wrote after abandoning her children, a confession she never expected to face in court.
The courtroom feels like it stopped breathing. I slowly pull the final folded sheet from the bottom of the yellow envelope. The paper is worn, creased so many times it almost feels soft. I've held onto it for years, unsure if I would ever need it. But now, this is the moment. This document, I say, my voice steady despite the storm inside me, was written by my daughter 3 days after she left her children at my door. Valerie stands up so fast her chair scrapes loudly across the floor. That's not fair, she cries. I was sick. I didn't know what I was doing. The judge raises his gavel. Sit down, Mrs. Vance. She collapses back into her seat, shaking. What kind of document is it? The judge asks. I swallow. A voluntary relinquishment of parental rights, I answer. The words land like thunder. The judge's eyes widen. Valerie's lawyer reaches for the paper with trembling hands as the clerk passes it forward. This document, I continue, was written entirely in my daughter's handwriting. It wasn't typed, it wasn't forced. She signed and dated it herself. The judge adjusts his glasses. Read it, he says quietly. Valerie's lawyer clears his throat, but his voice cracks as he begins. I, Valerie Vance, voluntarily give up all parental rights to my children, Arthur, Emily, and Andrea. I acknowledge that I am not emotionally, financially, or psychologically capable of raising them. A sob erupts from Valerie's chest. The lawyer keeps reading. I authorize my mother, Eleanor Vance, to make all medical, educational, and legal decisions. I waive visitation, contact, and future claims. The courtroom is silent except for Valerie's crying. The judge looks up sharply. This document is dated October 15th. Yes, Your Honor, I reply, 3 days after she left them with me. Valerie shouts, I was depressed. I wasn't thinking clearly. The judge's voice is firm. Medical records show you were discharged from treatment 2 months prior. You were deemed competent at that time. Valerie's lawyer sinks into his chair. There's more, the judge continues, scanning the page. This document states the decision was final and irrevocable. Arthur grips the bench behind me. Emily wipes her tears. Andrea stares at the floor, stunned. They never knew. I never wanted them to know. And Mrs. Vance, the judge asks Valerie, do you deny writing this? She shakes her head, sobbing. No. Do you deny signing it? No. The judge exhales slowly. Then he looks at me. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, he says to me, why didn't you use this document years ago? I wasn't trying to punish my daughter. I was trying to protect her children. A hush falls over the room. The judge nods slightly. And what changed? He asks. She threatened me. She threatened to send me to prison so she could access their inheritance.
The judge's expression hardens. "Mrs. Vance," he says to Valerie, "you understand that threatening false criminal accusations constitutes extortion." Valerie begins to panic. "I never meant—" The judge raises his hand. "I'm not finished." He turns to me again. "Is this everything?" he asks. I hesitate, then shake my head. "No, Your Honor," I say softly. "There's still one thing the court hasn't heard." The judge leans forward. "What is it?" I turn and look at my grandchildren. I would like the court to hear the words directly from them. Valerie's head snaps up. "No," she whispers. But the judge nods. "I agree," he says. "They deserve a voice." Arthur is called first. He stands slowly. And what he's about to say will break what little defense Valerie has left. My grandchildren take the stand and tell the court who their real mother has always been.
When the judge calls Arthur's name, the room shifts. My oldest grandson stands slowly, his shoulders tense but his face calm. At 20 years old, he's legally an adult, but in that moment I can see the 7-year-old boy he once was, standing at my window, asking when his mom was coming back. "Arthur," the judge says gently, "you can speak freely here. Do you remember your biological mother?" Arthur nods. "Yes, Your Honor, some things." He takes a breath. "I remember being hungry a lot. I remember my grandma bringing groceries to our house even before we moved in with her. I remember the day we came to her place. She bathed us, made soup, and told us we were safe." Valerie covers her mouth. "And how did your grandmother treat you?" the judge asks. Arthur doesn't hesitate. "She raised us. She worked extra jobs. She never missed a school meeting. She stayed up all night when we were sick. She was always there." The judge nods. "And how do you feel about your mother's absence?" Arthur closes his eyes briefly. "For a long time, I was angry. I thought maybe we weren't worth coming back for." His voice tightens. "But when I got older, I understood that my grandma gave up her peace, her money, and her health to raise us. She chose us." The courtroom is silent. "And where do you want to live now?" the judge asks. Arthur looks directly at Valerie. "I'm an adult. But if my words help protect my sisters, then I want it clear on record. My home is with my grandma. She's our mother in every way that matters." Arthur returns to his seat, and the judge calls Emily next. Emily walks to the stand with quiet strength. At 18, she's composed but visibly emotional. "Emily," the judge says, "what do you remember about your childhood?" She swallows. "I remember chaos. I remember taking care of my little sister when adults didn't. I remember feeling invisible." She glances at me. "And I remember peace when we moved in with Grandma." Valerie tries to speak, but the judge silences her. "Grandma took us to therapy. She enrolled us in activities so we wouldn't feel different. When I was diagnosed with diabetes, she learned everything she needed to keep me healthy." The judge asks the question everyone is waiting for. "And where do you want to live?" Emily doesn't hesitate. "My biological mother is a stranger. My grandma raised me. That's where I belong." Then comes Andrea. My youngest approaches the stand slowly, her jaw set. "I don't remember much from before, but I remember being scared. And I remember Grandma's house smelled like safety." Tears stream down my face. The judge asks softly, "Would you like to build a relationship with your biological mother?" Andrea pauses. "Maybe someday," she says honestly, "but not now. I'm afraid she'll leave again." "And where do you feel safe?" "With my grandma," Andrea answers. "She never left." Andrea returns to her seat. The courtroom is silent. The judge turns to me. "Mrs. Vance, your grandchildren have been very clear." Valerie sobs openly now, but the judge isn't finished. "Before I rule," he says, "there is still the matter of the threats and attempted extortion." Valerie's lawyer stands nervously. The judge looks directly at me. "Mrs. Vance, do you wish to press criminal charges?" The question hangs in the air, and my answer will change everything.
The judge delivers his ruling, and I make a decision about my daughter that no one expects.
The courtroom is so quiet I can hear my own heartbeat. The judge's question still hangs in the air. "Mrs. Vance," he repeats gently, "do you wish to press criminal charges against your daughter for extortion and threats?" I look at Valerie. She looks nothing like the confident woman who walked in with a lawyer and accusations. She looks small now, broken, like a frightened child who finally understands the consequences of her choices. For a moment, I say nothing. Then I shake my head. "No, Your Honor," I answer quietly. "I don't want my daughter to go to prison." Valerie lets out a shaky breath of relief. "But," I continue, my voice firming, "I do ask for protection." The judge nods. "Go on." "I ask that my legal guardianship be permanently upheld," I say, "and that a restraining order be issued preventing Valerie from contacting the children for at least 5 years, unless they choose otherwise when they are adults." Valerie cries out, "You're taking them away from me forever." I turn toward her slowly. "No," I say, "you let them go 13 years ago." The judge raises his gavel, silencing the room. "I've reviewed the evidence carefully," he says. "The letters, the guardianship records, the threats, the voluntary relinquishment of parental rights." He looks directly at Valerie. "Mrs. Vance, the court finds overwhelming evidence of abandonment. The document you wrote, combined with your 13-year absence, leaves no legal ambiguity." Valerie's lawyer lowers his head. "The court hereby rules that Mrs. Eleanor Vance's permanent guardianship of Andrea Vance is confirmed. Any custody claim by Mrs. Valerie Vance is denied." My hands tremble, not from fear, from relief. The gavel strikes. Court is adjourned. The sound echoes through the room like a final chapter closing. Outside in the hallway, my grandchildren surround me, arms wrapped tightly around my shoulders. "Grandma," Andrea whispers, "we're safe now, right?" "Yes," I tell her, holding her close. "You are." Valerie approaches us slowly, her steps hesitant. "Mom," she says softly, "can we talk?" I nod. We step aside. "I know I did terrible things," she says, tears streaking her face. "I know I failed them, but do you think, someday, they might forgive me?" I look at her for a long moment. Forgiveness isn't something you demand, it's something you earn, and even then, it's their choice, not mine. She nods, defeated. As she walks away, I feel sadness, but not guilt, because protecting children isn't cruelty, it's love. 3 months later, our home is quiet again, the good kind of quiet. Arthur is away at college, Emily works part-time and prepares for her future, Andrea practices guitar in the living room, filling the house with music instead of fear. The inheritance remains untouched, safe in trust, waiting for the children to decide how to use it when they're ready. And Valerie? She faded back into the distance. But life has a way of surprising you, because 1 year later, something happens that I never expected. A year passed after the trial. Life didn't magically become perfect, but it became peaceful. And that mattered more than anything. Arthur graduated from college with honors and landed his first engineering job. Emily was accepted into university and worked part-time at a bookstore she loved. Andrea, now 17, led her school band and practiced guitar every evening in our living room, her music filling the house with something we had missed for years. Calm. The fear was gone. No more waiting for unexpected knocks at the door. No more wondering if someone would try to take the children away again. The restraining order gave us space to breathe, to heal. We were finally living instead of surviving. Then one afternoon, my neighbor knocked. "Eleanor," she said gently, "it's about Valerie." My stomach tightened. She told me Valerie's husband had left her, took their son, moved out without looking back. Valerie had lost her home and was working nights cleaning offices, barely getting by. Despite everything she'd done, she was still my daughter.
That night, I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I did something that surprised even me. I went grocery shopping. I filled my cart with basics: rice, beans, bread, milk, vegetables. I drove across town to a small apartment building and knocked on a door I hadn't seen in years. When Valerie opened it, she looked shocked and broken. "Mom?" she whispered. "I brought food," I said. "May I come in?" She stepped aside. Her apartment was small, nearly empty, unpaid bills scattered across the table. She collapsed onto the couch and cried like a child who finally ran out of excuses. "I lost everything," she sobbed. "I lost my kids. I lost my marriage. I lost my life." I sat beside her. "No," I said quietly. "You lost the life you built on avoidance. Now you have a chance to build a real one." She looked up at me. "Will you ever let me see them again?" I didn't hesitate. "That decision isn't mine," I said. "It belongs to the children. When they're ready, if they ever are." She nodded. "I understand." That was the first time I believed her. Months later, I learned she enrolled herself in therapy, got a stable job, stopped depending on anyone else to rescue her. She didn't ask about inheritance. She didn't ask about custody. She simply worked on herself. One evening, Andrea asked me something unexpected. "Grandma," she said softly, "if someday I want to meet her, would you be mad?" I smiled and shook my head. "No, my love. I'd be proud of you for making your own choice. Because real love doesn't trap. It protects and then lets go when the time is right." Today, my grandchildren are strong, kind, and secure. They know what unconditional love looks like because they lived it. As for Valerie, she's living with the consequences of her choices, but also learning from them. Justice didn't mean revenge. It meant boundaries. It meant protecting children. And it meant loving someone without allowing them to cause harm again. Sometimes the bravest thing a parent or a grandparent can do is say no, even when it breaks their heart. And sometimes love doesn't look like forgiveness right away. Sometimes it looks like protection. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between love and boundaries? And remember, real love doesn't abandon, doesn't manipulate, and doesn't come back only when money's involved. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next life story.